That just did not work for me.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes.
Whenever you're new at something, you're trying something different you've never done before, it can be frustrating sometimes when you do all kinds of research, all kinds of planning, and then when you go to implement what you're doing to actually try it, it doesn't turn out exactly the way that you expected. But the truth of the matter is, that's just what it is to try new things and learn new things. There's no better teacher than hands-on experience. That's kind of where I am right now as a new homesteader. Sometimes it kind of feels like my life at this point is a giant experiment and everything is new. And it kind of is. I mean, it's a lot to learn kind of all at once, you know, how to raise food, basically, to garden and to raise animals, etc. And one of the things that I'm learning is that I really should relax a little bit, because it doesn't matter how much I prepare, there's always going to be some things that are not going to go the way that is expected, because variables change. And that means sometimes you're going to have to do something over again, or it's just going to fail and you need to do something else. It happens, and you know, that's not really a bad thing. To me, you know, success means reaching your goal. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's expectations. You can do it however you need to do it in your circumstance. For me right now, that new thing was the chicken coop. We brought chickens onto the homestead this year. It's our very first livestock. And we actually really did fantastic building a coop. It's way overbuilt. We built a whole shed. Half of it is the coop, and half was supposed to be a garden shed, but it turns out that you kind of need the other half to store your supplies, because we're not using the barn yet. So it's basically the entire thing is the chicken coop. But when I first set it up, I really wanted everything to be as natural as possible, and we put branches in for the chickens to roost on at night. And they were doing fine. It worked fine for them, but not so great for me. It turned out that the way that I had them positioned, I kept hitting my head on them every time I went in the coop. It was really hard to scoop the floor to clean out the coop underneath those bars. And also, since the easiest time to get a hold of your birds if you need to check on them or anything is after they've gone to roost at night, because I had the bars high, it meant I had to reach up over my head to try to get a hold of them, and that just never worked out well. So I needed to make some changes to the roosting bars. But that wasn't the only problem. Also, I had been trying to do a deep litter method in the coop, figuring I would only need to clean it out between 1 and 4 times a year, and I could get help for that, and it would be okay. I have some problems with my back, with my knees, and so I can't just shovel it out every week. I have to find ways around that kind of cleaning. But I thought it would be okay. But it turns out that just did not work for me. A deep litter method just does not work for me. I'm probably doing it wrong. It's very likely, but it smelled, and it's not good for the birds. It's not good for me, and I just can't shovel it out often enough to keep it smelling fresh if that's the way I have to do it. So it was time to scrap that plan and come up with something new. So I dove into research again, and I found that some people are using what's called a poop deck. And I had seen them before, and to me it seemed like a lot of extra work to have to clean it up all the time. Then I found one where someone had installed the poop deck at about waist height in a walk-in coop, which is what I have. And you know, she was able to use just a kitty litter scoop and scoop it out. You know, you could do it every day, you could do it every couple days, you could do it once a week, but it's more often than having to clean out a deep litter method. But standing up at waist height and not having to shovel heavy litter is much better for me. So I set about designing my own poop deck and roost bars, and then we had to clean it out because it needed to be cleaned out before we could take anything new in there. So we cleaned the whole thing out and installed all the new stuff, and now we have this fantastic poop deck with 2 roost bars. I have one at about 6 inches above the poop deck and one at about 9 inches above the poop deck. And for my birds, I have 14 birds right now, and the roosts are each 8 feet long, and that's plenty. I could fit a few more birds in here easily, and it's fantastic. I go in every couple of days with the kitty litter scoop. It takes 10 or 15 minutes, and that's all done. I fill the poop deck with a mixture of sand and stall dry, and it's super simple to clean up. Really, really easy, just like a giant litter box. And I don't have to kneel, I don't have to bend, I don't have to shovel heavy litter and manure. I don't have to do any of that. I just take a bucket and my kitty litter scoop and clean it all up, and then I can just carry my, there's barely anything in there, barely full bucket to the compost pile myself. I don't need any help.
Hey, don't touch me. Hey. Come on, everybody out. Out. Come on, out. Everybody out. Out. Go. You're not laying there, get out.
People have lots of reasons for starting to homestead later in life. In my case, there were a couple of reasons. One was because I really wanted more food security, and I wanted to know where more of my food came from and how it was raised and grown. The other part of the reason for starting to homestead later in life for me was to make sure that it was to improve my health and my habits. To make sure that I have things to do that require me to get up and come outside and move, especially when I'm, it's challenging some days. And then in the end, to have healthier options for food that I grew and raised myself. I know where it came from. I know what went into it and what didn't. When I started this journey, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to hack it. I have some physical challenges, and farming is hard work. There's no doubt about it. It's hard work. Hard physical work. And physical work is something that is challenging for me. Not because I don't want to do it. I can do some, but some I just can't do. It's not possible for me. So I'm finding that with some support, as long as I can get the infrastructure set up so that it works for me, then I can maintain it with very little help after that. So I hope that's encouraging to somebody out there. If you're struggling to make your chicken coop work for you, this might be an option, something that you can do to make it a little easier on yourself. And, don't be afraid to try to find some help and get those kinds of things installed where you need them to be so that you can grow healthy food for yourself too.